The Chevrolet Astro 2 was revealed at the 1968 New York Auto Show. It was less extreme in its styling than Chevrolet Astro 1, but the General Motors management figured the public was not ready for a mid-engine car.
In the vast history of the automobile industry, certain cars seemed destined for greatness, only to disappear almost as quickly as they arrived. These weren't your everyday family sedans or mass-produced workhorses. Instead, they were ambitious creations, some experimental, some ahead of their time, and others simply doomed by circumstance. They appeared in magazines, motor shows, or in fleeting glimpses on the streets, igniting curiosity before vanishing into obscurity. For car enthusiasts, these rare machines are like ghost stories, whispered legends of vehicles built once, admired by a handful, and then gone forever. They remind us of a time when automakers dared to dream big, sometimes too big, pushing the limits of technology, design, and imagination. Today, we're revisiting those forgotten wonders. 14 cars that were built once and then disappeared, leaving behind only photographs, memories, and the tantalizing question of what could have been. Number 14. 1954. Pontiac Bonneville Special. In the mid-1950s, the American auto industry was in the throes of experimentation, and Pontiac wanted to prove it could keep pace with Chevrolet and Ford. At the 1954 GM Motorama, Pontiac unveiled the Bonneville Special, a two-seat fiberglass concept car designed to showcase speed and modern styling. It was inspired by the Bonneville Salt Flats, a sacred ground for land speed records, and its sleek, jet-age design reflected America's obsession with aviation during that era. The Bonneville Special was fitted with a Pontiac straight-eight engine, and its design included dramatic features: a low, wide stance, gull-wing-like canopy doors, and futuristic tail fins that foreshadowed the styling excesses of the late 1950s. The car looked like something pulled straight from a science fiction comic book. Only two were ever built, one painted metallic green, the other bronze. Despite its show-stopping appearance, Pontiac decided against production. The fiberglass body was too radical for the time, and Pontiac was still considered a conservative brand. Instead, the lessons learned from the Bonneville Special were channeled into the future Pontiac Bonneville production line, which began in 1957. Today, both original prototypes survive in museum collections, making them some of the rarest Pontiacs ever created. For enthusiasts who remember seeing it on display, the Bonneville Special remains an unforgettable glimpse into Pontiac's potential, a bold experiment that vanished before it had a chance to hit the open road. Number 13. 1967. Ford Allegro 2. The 1960s were a golden age for car design, with every major manufacturer chasing the next big idea. For Ford, the Allegro 2 concept of 1967 was an attempt to blend futuristic European styling with American performance flair. It was a follow-up to the original Allegro concept shown in 1963. But this time, the company aimed to create something sleeker, more refined, and closer to a true sports car. The Allegro 2 featured a sharp, low-slung body with a pointed nose and hidden headlights. Its roofline curved smoothly into the rear, giving it a fastback silhouette that looked almost Italian in inspiration. Beneath its skin, the car carried Ford's experimental engineering ideas, including a mid-mounted V8 engine, something unheard of for Ford at the time. This layout promised better weight distribution and handling, and it hinted at Ford's ambitions to compete with European exotics. Despite its promise, the Allegro 2 never advanced beyond a single prototype. Ford executives worried that the design was too radical for mainstream buyers, and the costs of adapting it for production would have been astronomical. Instead, Ford poured resources into projects with more commercial appeal, like the Mustang and the GT40. What makes the Allegro 2 so fascinating today is how far ahead of its time it was. Its mid-engine layout foreshadowed the supercar boom that would dominate the 1970s and 1980s. For enthusiasts, the car is a tantalizing what-if, proof that Ford briefly considered taking the leap into exotic car territory. The lone prototype has since become a prized piece of Ford history, surviving in museum collections as a reminder of the company's experimental spirit during the 1960s. Number 12. 1956 Chrysler Norseman. If ever there was a car wrapped in legend and tragedy, it's the Chrysler Norseman. Built in Italy by Ghia and shipped to the United States in 1956, this was Chrysler's ultimate dream car of the era. Sleek, futuristic, and filled with advanced engineering, it was intended as a showpiece to demonstrate Chrysler's design vision for the future. But fate had other plans. The Norseman's most striking feature was its cantilevered roof design, which appeared to float without any visible support pillars. This engineering feat gave the car an airy, panoramic look, decades ahead of its time. It also boasted hidden headlights, a long, low body with flowing lines, and a powertrain designed for smooth, effortless cruising. Inside, it carried futuristic appointments such as power-adjustable seating and a highly stylized dashboard. Only one Norseman was ever built, making it priceless in the world of concept cars. Sadly, no one ever got to see it in person. The completed car was loaded aboard the ocean liner Andrea Doria for transport to America. When the ship tragically sank off the coast of Nantucket in July 1956, the Norseman went down with it. The prototype has never been recovered, making it one of the greatest lost cars in history. For decades, car enthusiasts have speculated what it might have been like to see the Norseman on display. Its advanced styling could have influenced Chrysler's entire design direction for years to come. Instead, it became an automotive ghost story, a car that was completed, shipped, and then swallowed by the sea before it could make its mark. The Chrysler Norseman remains one of the most haunting reminders of how easily history can vanish forever. Number 11. 1970 Ferrari 512S Modulo. Few cars in history have ever looked as otherworldly as the Ferrari 512S Modulo. Revealed at the 1970 Geneva Motor Show, it wasn't just a car, it was a piece of rolling science fiction. Designed by Paolo Martin at Pininfarina, the Modulo was based on the chassis of Ferrari's 512S Endurance Racer. But instead of a traditional sports car body, it was wrapped in one of the most radical designs ever attempted. The Modulo sat impossibly low to the ground, with a height of just 37 inches. Its futuristic wedge shape made it look like a spacecraft, complete with covered wheels and a canopy-style glass roof that slid forward to allow entry. Underneath, Ferrari had fitted a monstrous 5.0-liter Y-12 engine capable of producing over 500 horsepower. With a theoretical top speed of 220 miles per hour, it was one of the most extreme machines of its day. Despite its incredible presence, the Modulo was never intended for production. It was a concept car designed to showcase Ferrari and Pininfarina's ability to push design beyond conventional limits. For decades, the Modulo was stored as a museum piece, admired but never driven. That changed when car collector James Glickenhaus acquired it in the early 2000s. He painstakingly restored the Modulo to running condition, proving that the futuristic Ferrari wasn't just for show. It could actually roar to life. Even so, it remains a one-of-a-kind creation, a dazzling glimpse of what might have been if Ferrari had decided to take the boldest step of all. The 512S Modulo isn't just a vanished car. It's an icon of imagination, proof that sometimes the wildest designs are meant to inspire rather than to sell. Number 10. 1948 Tasco Prototype. The late 1940s were a fascinating time in automotive history. World War II had just ended, and designers were eager to take aviation and military technology and translate it into bold new car concepts. One of the most unique results of that era was the 1948 Tasco, short for the American Sports Car. Built on a modified Mercury chassis and designed by Gordon Buehrig, the same man behind the legendary Auburn and Cord. The Tasco looked like something out of a science fiction magazine. Its most striking feature was its aircraft-inspired cockpit. Instead of conventional doors, the Tasco had airplane-style sliding canopies that opened like a fighter jet. The car also introduced one of the earliest uses of a T-top roof, decades before it became popularized in production cars of the 1970s. Its long, narrow body, exposed front wheels, and radical styling made it unlike anything else on the road. Mechanically, the Tasco was powered by a V8 engine, but the engineering mattered less than the design. This was a car intended to spark the imagination, a futuristic vision that hinted at where automobiles might be headed. Unfortunately, the radical styling divided opinion. While some saw it as innovative, others thought it looked awkward and impractical. Without financial backing, the Tasco never advanced beyond a single prototype. Today, the one surviving Tasco prototype still exists, preserved as a museum piece. It's remembered less for its performance and more for its daring design choices, particularly the introduction of the T-top concept. For enthusiasts, it represents a road not taken, a car that could have changed the course of design trends had it caught on. Instead, it vanished into obscurity, leaving behind only whispers of what it tried to be. Number 9. 1953 Buick Wildcat Y. In the early 1950s, General Motors was at the height of its creativity, staging lavish Motorama shows across the country to display futuristic dream cars. One of the most memorable to come out of this era was the 1953 Buick Wildcat Y, a concept designed to prove that Buick could be just as stylish and performance-oriented as Chevrolet's Corvette. The Wildcat. I was a two-seat roadster with dramatic curves, wide fenders, and a low-slung stance. Its fiberglass body was lightweight and modern, following the same experimental material trend as the Corvette. Inside, the cockpit featured bucket seats, a floor-mounted gear shifter, and a futuristic dashboard with aviation-inspired gauges. The Wildcat looked sporty, luxurious, and advanced, a clear sign that Buick wanted to appeal to younger, style-conscious buyers. Under the hood, the Wildcat carried a 322 cubic inch V8 engine paired with a Dynaflow automatic transmission. It wasn't just a showpiece, it was a fully functional performance machine that could rival many sports cars of its day. Buick engineers envisioned it as a halo car that could change the brand's image forever. But when the applause faded, Buick executives pulled back. The Corvette had just been launched, and GM didn't want two fiberglass sports cars competing within its own lineup. The Wildcat, I was retired after the show circuit, never advancing to production. Still, the Wildcat name would live on in Buick's lineup for years, attached to larger luxury performance cars of the 1960s. But the original 1953 concept, that sleek, daring two-seater, remained a one-off. Today, it's remembered as one of Buick's boldest ideas, a car that could have redefined the brand's identity, but instead vanished, leaving only a tantalizing glimpse of what Buick might have become. Number 8. 1970. Lancia Stratos Zero. Few concept cars have ever made jaws drop quite like the Lancia Stratos Zero. Unveiled in 1970, this radical creation by Bertone looked less like a car and more like a wedge-shaped spacecraft that had landed on Earth. It was so low to the ground, just 33 inches tall, that it could practically slide under a parked truck. For car lovers of the time, it was unlike anything they had ever seen. The Stratos Zero featured an extreme wedge design, with sharp angles, a pointed nose, and a futuristic single-pane windshield that stretched across the front. Entry into the car was equally wild. There were no conventional doors. Instead, the entire front windshield tilted forward, allowing the driver to climb in feet first. Inside, the cockpit was minimalist and tight, designed more to impress showgoers than to provide comfort. Underneath the radical bodywork sat a mid-mounted V4 engine borrowed from the Lancia Fulvia. It wasn't blisteringly fast, but speed wasn't the point. This car was a rolling design manifesto, a showcase of how far Italian styling houses were willing to push boundaries in the early 1970s. Although the Stratos Zero never made it to production, its influence was enormous. It directly inspired the creation of the legendary Lancia Stratos HF rally car, which went on to dominate world rallying in the 1970s. In that sense, the Zero wasn't just a one-off dream. It was the spark that ignited one of the most successful rally cars in history. Today, the original Stratos Zero still exists, preserved as a museum piece and a crowd favorite whenever it's displayed. It stands as a reminder that sometimes the boldest concepts don't just vanish. They quietly shape the future from behind the scenes. Number 7. 1955. Lincoln Futura. In the mid-1950s, Ford's Lincoln division was looking for a way to show off futuristic design and cutting-edge engineering. The result was the 1955 Lincoln Futura, a concept car that stunned audiences with its dramatic looks and space-age personality. Built by Ghia in Turin, Italy, the Futura was as much a rolling piece of art as it was an automobile. The Futura featured a double-bubble canopy roof, resembling the cockpit of a fighter jet. Its long, wide body was decorated with exaggerated fins, bold chrome accents, and a prominent hood scoop. Finished in a pearlescent frost blue paint that shifted colors in the light, the car was unlike anything else on the road. Inside, it was just as wild, with push-button controls, a futuristic dashboard, and an interior that looked like something from a science fiction movie set. Underneath its dramatic styling, the Futura carried a 368 cubic-inch V8 engine paired with an automatic transmission. It was a fully functional machine, though never meant for mass production. The car was primarily designed as a showpiece for auto shows, parades, and exhibitions, helping Lincoln build prestige and excitement during the 1950s. After its show career, the Futura's story took a surprising twist. It sat in storage for years until it was purchased for just $1 by George Barris, the famed Hollywood customizer. In 1966, Barris transformed the forgotten concept into one of the most iconic TV cars of all time. The original Batmobile for the Batman television series starring Adam West. While the Lincoln Futura itself was never produced, its DNA lived on in pop culture, forever tied to the Batmobile's silhouette. Today, enthusiasts still marvel at how a wild 1950s show car, built once and left to fade away, became an unforgettable piece of automotive and entertainment history. Number 6. 1938 Buick Y-Job. Often considered the very first true concept car, the 1938 Buick Y-Job set the stage for decades of experimental design. Created under the leadership of Harley Earl, General Motors' first design chief, the Y-Job was not just a flashy prototype. It was a rolling laboratory where future styling and technology could be tested in public. The Y-Job's design was sleek and modern compared to the boxy cars of the late 1930s. It featured hidden headlights, which retracted into the fenders at the push of a button, a feature that would later become a hallmark of American cars in the 1960s and 70s. It also carried flush door handles, a low stance, and flowing lines that gave it a futuristic look. The long hood and short rear deck proportions hinted at the styling language that Buick and other GM divisions would adopt in the coming decades. Inside, the car was just as advanced. It had power windows, virtually unheard of at the time, and a wide, comfortable cabin with luxury touches meant to impress. Under the hood, it was powered by a Buick straight-8 engine, ensuring that the Y-Job wasn't just a pretty face, but a functional car. Unlike most concept cars, which were confined to showrooms, the Y-Job was actually driven regularly by Harley Earl himself. For years, he used it as his personal car around Detroit, turning heads wherever he went. But despite its influence, the Y-Job remained a one-off, never intended for mass production. Today, it's preserved in GM's Heritage Collection, celebrated as the car that started it all. While it vanished as a production idea, its legacy can be seen in countless design elements that shaped American cars for decades. The Buick Y-Job proved that concept cars could be more than fantasies. They could be the blueprint for the future. Number 5. 1979 Mercedes-Benz CW311. At the tail end of the 1970s, Mercedes-Benz was already respected for its luxury sedans and engineering excellence, but the CW311 prototype showed the world a side of Mercedes that very few had ever imagined. Built by the German engineering firm B&B in partnership with Mercedes, the CW311 was a one-off supercar designed to explore advanced aerodynamics and raw performance. The car's name, CW, referred to its drag coefficient, a measure of aerodynamic efficiency, and the CW311's wedge-shaped body was built with airflow in mind. Its low nose, hidden headlights, and sharply sculpted body made it look futuristic, more like an exotic Italian supercar than a traditional Mercedes. But the most radical element was under the hood, a 6.9-liter Mercedes FAV 8-engine producing over 370 horsepower, allowing the CW311 to reach speeds north of 180 miles per hour, an astonishing figure for the time. The CW311 wasn't just about speed, though. It featured gull-wing doors that paid homage to the legendary Mercedes 300 SL, reminding fans of the company's heritage while pointing toward its future. The car's bold orange paint and aggressive stance made it a showstopper wherever it appeared, instantly sparking talk of Mercedes building a true production supercar. But despite its brilliance, the CW311 remained a one-off prototype. Mercedes-Benz was reluctant to chase the supercar market, preferring to stay focused on luxury and engineering refinement. The project was shelved, though the CW311's DNA lived on in a surprising way. Later, it inspired the reborn Isdera Imperator 108i, a rare German supercar that carried the spirit of the CW311 into the 1980s. Today, the single CW311 is preserved as a reminder that Mercedes once dared to imagine itself as a maker of wild, futuristic supercars. It stands as one of those rare moments where a legendary brand stepped far outside its comfort zone, only to vanish back into history. Number 4. 1953. General Motors Firebird Y. In the early 1950s, jet aircraft were the height of technology and fascination, and General Motors decided to capture that excitement on 4 wheels. The result was the 1953 Firebird Y, a car that looked less like an automobile and more like a fighter jet with wheels. Built under Harley Earl's visionary styling program, it was the first in a series of experimental GM Firebird concepts that pushed the limits of imagination. The Firebird had a needle-nosed front end, a bubble canopy cockpit, and a single jet-like tail fin rising high above the rear. Every angle screamed aviation, from its streamlined body to its afterburner-style exhaust. It wasn't just for looks, either. Under the skin, the Firebird was powered by a gas turbine engine producing 370 horsepower. This was the first car in America designed and built specifically to run on a turbine, an idea automakers at the time believed might replace the piston engine. Driving it, however, was a different story. The turbine engine produced extreme heat, drank fuel at an alarming rate, and proved difficult to control at low speeds. The Firebird could hit serious top speeds, but it was impractical for real-world roads. In truth, it was less a car and more a rolling science experiment, a way for GM to explore futuristic propulsion and make headlines at its Motorama shows. Only one Firebird was ever built, and it never entered production. Instead, it paved the way for GM's later turbine-powered Firebird 2 and 3 concepts, each just as wild. Today, the Firebird survives in GM's Heritage Center, remembered as one of the most spectacular concept cars of its time. While it vanished as a practical idea, it left behind an unforgettable image of the future as imagined in the jet age. Number 3. 1970. Holden Hurricane. Australia might not be the first place most people think of when it comes to radical concept cars, but in 1970, Holden shocked the world with the Hurricane. Sleek, futuristic, and jam-packed with advanced technology, it was decades ahead of its time and remains one of the most remarkable one-off cars ever built. The Hurricane's design was pure science fiction. Its wedge-shaped body sat impossibly low, with covered wheels and sharp angles that rivaled the most daring Italian supercars of the era. Instead of conventional doors, the entire canopy, roof, windshield, and side windows lifted forward and upward, allowing driver and passenger to climb inside. It looked like something straight out of a space movie, rather than a family-oriented Australian brand. But it wasn't just about looks. The Hurricane was powered by a mid-mounted 4.2-liter V8 engine, an exotic layout that gave it balance and performance potential far beyond typical Holdens of the time. It also featured a host of futuristic technologies rarely seen in 1970. These included automatic climate control, a rear-view camera system, digital instrumentation, and an early form of navigation assistance that used magnetic compasses and roadside sensors. Ideas that wouldn't reach mainstream cars until decades later. Despite its brilliance, the Hurricane was never intended for mass production. It was a pure experiment designed to showcase Holden's engineering capabilities and vision for the future. After its debut, the car was tucked away in storage, almost forgotten for years, until Holden restored it in the 2000s for display at auto shows and museums. The Holden Hurricane remains one of the greatest concept cars ever built, a one-off machine that seemed to leap forward in time, offering a glimpse of a world that only arrived 30 or 40 years later. For enthusiasts, it's a shining example of ambition that appeared once, then vanished into history. Number 2. 1968 Chevrolet Astro II. During the late 1960s, Chevrolet was on a roll with the Corvette. But behind the scenes, engineers were exploring even bolder possibilities. Enter the 1968 Chevrolet Astro II, a stunning mid-engine prototype that hinted at what America's sports car might have become if GM had been willing to take the plunge. The Astro II, also known as the XP880, was built to test the feasibility of a mid-engine Corvette, something fans had long clamored for. Its design was sleek and modern, with a long, low body and flowing lines that bore a clear resemblance to Italian exotics of the period. The cabin was pushed forward, the rear deck stretched out, and the overall proportions gave it a far more aggressive stance than the production Corvette of the time. Power came from a 427 cubic-inch big block V8 mounted behind the seats, paired with a transaxle for better balance and handling. This setup was revolutionary for Chevrolet, promising sharper cornering and stability at high speeds compared to the traditional front-engine layout. Engineers and designers alike believed this was the logical next step in the Corvette's evolution. But, as with many bold experiments, practicality and cost got in the way. GM executives worried that the Astro II would be too expensive to produce and too radical for mainstream Corvette buyers. They shelved the idea, deciding to keep the Corvette front-engined, a decision that stuck for more than 50 years until the C8 Corvette finally embraced a mid-engine layout in 2020. Today, the lone Astro II Thailand's 2 prototype still survives in GM's collection, a fascinating what-if story in the Corvette's long history. It's a car that showed where Chevrolet could have gone in the 1960s, only to vanish and leave fans dreaming of what might have been. Number 1. 1935 Bugatti Type 57 Aerolithe. Among all the vanished cars in history, few carry the mystique of the 1935 Bugatti Type 57 Aerolithe. Unveiled at the 1935 Paris Auto Show, this car was not only breathtakingly beautiful, but also technically revolutionary. And it disappeared almost as quickly as it appeared. The Aerolithe's design was unlike anything of its time. Jean Bugatti, son of company founder Ettore Bugatti, crafted a streamlined coupe with flowing fenders, a teardrop profile, and doors that blended seamlessly into its curving body. Its most distinctive feature was the exposed riveted seam running along the spine of the car, from nose to tail. This wasn't just for style. It was necessary because the car was built from electron, a magnesium alloy that couldn't be welded. Lightweight and advanced, the material gave the Aerolithe a futuristic presence. Under the hood, the Aerolithe carried Bugatti's 3.3-liter straight-8 engine, offering strong performance for its time. But more than speed, it was the car's otherworldly appearance that captured attention. Attendees at the Paris show were stunned, and Bugatti seemed poised to revolutionize automotive design. Then, just as quickly, it was gone. The Aerolithe never entered production, and the original prototype vanished without a trace after its debut. Some believe it was dismantled, others say it was lost during World War II, but, to this day, no one knows for certain. Its disappearance has only fueled its legend, making it one of the most mysterious lost cars in history. The legacy of the Aerolithe lived on, however, in the Bugatti Atlantic, a handful of production cars inspired by its design. But the original Aerolithe remains a ghost of the automotive world. A masterpiece built once, admired briefly, and then vanished forever. As we've seen, history is filled with cars that flickered into existence and then vanished just as quickly. Each of these machines represented bold ideas, wild experiments, and dreams that pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Some were lost to circumstance, some were deemed too radical, and others were simply forgotten as the industry marched forward. But their stories live on, not in the streets or showrooms, but in the memories of enthusiasts who still marvel at what might have been. These cars remind us that innovation often comes with risk, and sometimes the most unforgettable creations are the ones that appeared only once, leaving behind legends instead of legacies.